What's up, you guys? Teller checking in once again for Dana White's Contender Series Week 1 as we have two new fights to talk about. Jose Delgado steps in on short notice to take on the undefeated Ernie Juarez. Juarez was set to be facing off with Icaro Brito, the Fighting Nerds product, a fighter that you definitely want to keep on your radar. Unfortunately, that fight falls through, but take note, I think we will see Brito fight later on this season. Okay, Meng gets a replacement fighter as well in Rami. Hamed was supposed to be fighting on week 10 of this season. Meng initially was set to face off with Islam Dolatov, the 6'6" welterweight who's very well rounded and dangerous, is now set to be fighting on week 8 of this season. So we'll still get to see him perform. Cross your fingers there. And these are two exciting fights. So with no further ado, we'll jump into the first fight, which is going to be Meng versus Rami Hamed. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel, guys. And note, we are powered by BETUS. Sign up through the link in the description of this video. Get a 125% match on your first 3 deposits. All right, guys, let's go jump into this.
The teller.
So when Rami Hamed chose to take this fight on short notice, moving his fight up 10 weeks, there were some certain pros and cons to that decision. What's the obvious con? The fact that he is not as prepared as he would have been for that initial date, which was 10 weeks down the line. That's 10 more weeks of preparation that he could have had. Okay. Now, some of the pros that are going for him here is I do believe the Meng matchup is a more winnable fight for him. He was initially set to be taken on Raymond Magomedov, who is a fighter that recently lost on Dana White's Contender Series. He got knocked out in the 3rd round by the Fighting Nerds product, Rufi. But do note, before that, this is a fighter that had a victory over Impa Kasingane. I mean, that shows you the level that he's on, and he's still a promising prospect, and he will also be fighting on this season later on. I think he has a new matchup already. So just understand that Meng is a more winnable matchup for him. I think that this was an intelligent move for Rami Hamed to step in here. You gotta please the UFC brass anyway. You got to be willing to step in at any moment's time when you're trying to get a contract with the UFC. So this is a great opportunity for him. He steps in on short notice. If he can get a finish here, it would be huge for him. Rami Hamed is without a doubt a striker first. I would kind of label him as a wish version of Stephen Thompson. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. It's just he has a similar fighting style. But when you're talking about Stephen Thompson, you're talking about pretty much the greatest to ever do it in that aspect of being a karate kickboxing fighter coming into the sport of MMA. Hamed has a similar fighting style to Stephen Thompson, Lyoto Machida, MVP. He's very light on his feet. He loves to use a kick-heavy attack. I mean, that's his main threat on the feet is his kicking game. His hands are decent. I've seen some of you guys online saying he has absolutely no hands and he's a one-dimensional striker. I'm not necessarily in agreement there. I think that he is a well-rounded striker. Training at MMA Masters, he's obviously trying to round out his overall game, but I'm not very high on what I've seen from him down on the mat. But I'm not really high on what I've seen from Meng down in the mat as well. One thing that I do like that Ding does pretty well as far as his grappling goes is his takedown defense and his athleticism with his footwork. But when he's actually down on the canvas, I don't think he has a high-level BJJ game. And if this fight does go to the mat, I wouldn't be surprised if Hamed actually gets the better of those situations. But I think this fight's going to take place on the feet. I think both fighters are going to welcome that type of scenario. Meng, he's 29 years old. He has 42 professional fights, but they're all against very low-level competition. You have to understand that. Fighting over in China, I mean, you guys don't even want me to start stringing off the names here. Some of you guys that hate the way I pronounce fighters' names, you want me to start ringing off these names here: Dama Wu, Silajahu, Aragalili. I mean, you want me to start stringing them off, I will, okay? And even though he has his fair share amount of wins, which in fact a majority of his fights are wins, he has these occasional setbacks that are alarming to me because they're against low-level competition, and he's going out there and he's getting finished in those fights. He's getting submitted. He got head kicked, knocked out against Zhang Lu. I mean, that's alarming when you're losing to low-level fighters like that. While on the other hand, Rami Hamed, he's cutting his teeth over at Titan FC. You guys know Titan FC is a promotion that I'm well-versed with. I've gone to plenty of those events, and I think that they're a good funnel towards the UFC. They have some high-caliber fighters over there, and he's had some recent success. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. And you take a look at his last loss, which he was submitted, that was against Isakov, who's a fighter that is respectable. He's a fighter that people know is legitimate compared to the opposition that Deng's fighting over in China. I think Issa Isakov would probably maul every single one of the fighters that Deng has been in there with. So just kind of note that. His other loss was against Jose Caceres, I believe, the brother of Bruce Leroy. I think that is his brother over there, who also trains down in South Florida. And I just think that, I've been a little bit back and forth. So we'll get to the betting line in a second, because I actually really enjoy watching Meng Ding fight. He's a scrappy dude, and I think that his striking isn't bad. And maybe he can have success using his hands as Rami Hamed looks to have that heavy kicking attack against him. Maybe you could see Deng countering him. Deng is a very aggressive fighter. Maybe he could have success clipping Hamed there. But all in all, I just think that Rami Hamed is going to be a little bit more of a fine-tuned striker, and will get the better of those striking exchanges. Even though Hamed is a little bit of a smaller fighter, he's an inch shorter and will be at almost a 4-inch reach disadvantage. Deng is a long fighter for this division. I still think that Hamed can manage distance better and use his leg kicks well in this fight. Deng doesn't really fight too long, if you ask me. Even though he's a bigger fighter, when you watch tape on him, he's really willing to scrap it out. He steps into the pocket and looks to land heavy shots. And I just think that Hamed will be able to be the matador a little bit more so. I have a little bit more faith in him based on who he's training with and who he's been in there with before. And I am going to side with Rami Hamed to win this fight. And I do not think it's out of the realm he gets a finish. In fact, I'll say he gets a finish here. I'm going to say he gets a TKO. Maybe he sets up a nice head kick. We've seen Ding knocked out before via head kick. Maybe Hamed can set up a head kick or some type of brutal kick as he's chopping the legs, and then he goes up high with something there. So it's not an overly confident pick, because I do have my question marks in regards to Rami Hamed as well. But he's kind of the route you got to go with your pick here, in my opinion. Meng Ding needs to show us more. Although I do believe Meng Ding is the perfect type of fighter for this show and has the ability to go out there and deliver a fun fight for us, I don't know if he's the type of fighter that is good enough to be fighting in the octagon. Time will tell. If he has a good performance here, we're really going to get an idea of who he is on the night, but I need to see more from him. We're seeing some opening lines come out, and Hamed seems to be the favorite here. I've seen him around a -250, which is too high for my liking. The comeback on Ding right now is right around +185. I think the value is on the underdog here. As we talked in the initial video that I did to introduce this season, you got to be careful targeting these heavy favorites. And I just don't think Hamed is worth being a -250 against a fighter in Ding that has a lot of experience, and maybe he elevates his game when he's in there against a more reputable opponent. Maybe we see the similar type of tactics in the cage, even against a high-level fighter. He's a scrappy dude. He moves well. He's athletic. He has a lot of confidence in there. Maybe he's able to do enough to get the job done. So I'm not targeting Rami Hamed at a -250 line here. I will pick him to win this fight and even to possibly get that KO or whatnot. But this could easily be a legitimate scrap, and I think the value would be on the underdog, where you're almost getting 2-to-1 odds.
Michael Vick here at BetUS.com. Get it all. Huge bonuses, great odds, a race book, live in-game betting, and a casino. BetUS, my online sports book and casino.
And then to the featherweight division, Ernie Juarez now taking on Jose Delgado. As we said, Juarez was supposed to be taking on the very promising prospect in Brito. Well, it's not much of a step down in competition. I think Jose Delgado is a promising up-and-coming fighter as well. I liked the tape that I broke down on him. Jose Delgado was actually supposed to be taking on a friend of mine, Arthur Duflo. So, I'm well-versed on his tape, and I even got some insight from Arthur, and Arthur had a lot of respect for Delgado going into that fight. I know he understood that it was a high-level opponent for him, and he's the real deal. You take a look at his one loss against Chris Makate. Chris Makate, actually a respectable fighter on the regional scene, has a solid little regional resume there, and when you watch his tape, he's a tough dude. Chris had success with his grappling in that fight against Delgado. He was just pulling off some Khabib tactics, just continuously chain wrestling and going for those takedowns, and he had success there. But even in that loss for Delgado, I still think that he showed some flashes. He was stuffing some takedowns late. He was looking to implement his own damage as he was breaking off and stuffing some takedowns. I mean, I'm not saying that he won the fight, but he showed some flashes, and you see that he's working on some things and bounced back with a nice string of victories after that fight, getting finishes in all 4 of them. And take note, he has been a very, very active fighter. I mean, all these fighters all these fights taking place. In fact, his entire professional career starting in 2022, he's been stringing off victories. He's already fought 3 times this year. This will be his 4th fight in 2024. The Makate fight was in 2023. So he is just completely involved in the game. He's very active. He's a fighter that has good cardio, which is going to be very important because Ernie Juarez is a fighter that kind of looks to break you with his pace. Even though he's a slow twitch fighter, he'll continue to chug forward and look to implement that style on you. He's decently well-rounded, as we talked about, but he's slow. And I think that Delgado is going to be the much more fast twitch fighter, the better athlete. He can keep up the pace with Juarez. I don't think Juarez is going to be able to gas Delgado out. I'm not concerned with the fact that Delgado steps in on short notice because he looks like he's always ready to go. When you watch his fights, when he's in the cage, he goes 15 minutes. Even that loss we talked about, I mean, in the 3rd round, he was framing, stuffing takedowns, working, and I think that he'll be able to go 15 minutes. He's training out of the MMA lab, which we know there's another fighter fighting out of the MMA lab on this card as well. So they're ready to go. They're working their way into this night. And I think that Delgado's going to have success. He's going to be the better striker. He's going to be just a little bit more athletic and quick to whatever's going on in the cage. So give me Jose Delgado to get a decision victory. I'm not ready to fade Juarez as far as him getting finished in the cage. He's shown to be durable. He's never been finished as an MMA pro, even though he was knocked out once in a professional boxing match. But in the cage, he seems to be a thick, muscular, durable dude. And I could just see Delgado piecing him up, hurting him, but I see Juarez surviving to that final bell where he will lose a decision. Okay, when it comes to the betting line, we have another heavy favorite here. Delgado is right around at -250, almost the same exact line we just talked about. I'm seeing the comeback on Juarez just under 2-to-1 odds there, plus odds, or right around a plus 190 or so. And this one, I'm gonna say that I'm still leaning towards Delgado's way. I just think that he's the better fighter. So even with that -250 line, I know it's a higher line. I would still lean towards that way if you want to mix it in a parlay or you're attacking a heavy line. It's just, I'm not going to sit here and say the same thing I said for the last fight where it's too high. I know you guys want something you could bite down on, and it's risky, but Delgado's good, man. He looks the part, and I think that he goes out there and shows up. All right, guys. So hopefully that will officially wrap up this week 1 episode, unless we have more shakeups coming. We have a couple days here until the fight card actually takes place. I'm filming this Friday morning, but hopefully this will settle in here. Take note, I am eyeing to do a fight companion for this episode. In fact, I think I'm going to be doing a live watch for every single DWCS episode this season. So if you guys can, please come join me. Let's have a good time. Support the channel here. Like, subscribe. It means a lot to me. You guys know I'm hustling over here. I appreciate you guys. Signing out. Teller.
The teller.